The morning sun cast golden rays across the wheat fields of Haven's End Colony. Children played between the rows of tall grain while their parents worked the fertile soil of Terran 7. This world had been their home for 23 years, built from nothing but hope and human determination. Mary Wells checked her morning reports in the Colonial Administration Building. The harvest was coming along perfectly. Food shipments to Earth would exceed expectations this year. She smiled as she watched through her window. Her daughter Anna was teaching the younger children how to identify different types of grain. Life was good here on the frontier. The peaceful morning shattered when the sky began to burn. Massive ships descended through the atmosphere like falling mountains. Their hulls gleamed with an alien metal that reflected the sunlight in disturbing patterns. These were not human vessels. The colonists had never seen anything like them before. David Cross was repairing irrigation systems in the northern fields when the shadow of the largest ship passed over him. He looked up and felt his blood turn cold. The ship was at least 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. More ships followed behind it, smaller but equally menacing. The colony's communication system crackled to life. A harsh, alien voice spoke in heavily accented English. "Humans of this world, you are trespassing on territory claimed by the Kalith Empire. Your species is weak and unworthy of these fertile lands. You will be removed." Tom Bradley was in the small orbital defense station above the planet when the alien fleet arrived. His 3 security ships were designed to handle pirates and smugglers, not a full military force. The alien vessels outnumbered him 50-1. Each of their weapons could probably destroy his entire station with a single shot. "This is Captain Bradley of Haven's End Defense Force," he transmitted on all frequencies. "We are a peaceful agricultural colony under protection of the Terran Federation. We have no military weapons or strategic value. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in the form of plasma fire. Bright green energy beams lanced out from the alien ships and struck Tom's 3 patrol vessels. They vanished in brilliant explosions that lit up the orbital space around Terran 7. Tom had barely enough time to send out an emergency distress signal before the alien weapons turned toward his station. On the surface, War Chief Thane studied the human settlement through his ship's sensors. These creatures lived in simple buildings spread across the landscape. They grew food in organized patterns and had small vehicles for transportation. Their technology appeared primitive compared to Kalith standards. This would be easy work. "Begin the cleansing," Thane commanded his fleet. "Leave nothing alive." The alien ships opened fire on Haven's End. Plasma cannons that could melt through starship armor turned the colony's buildings into pools of molten metal and stone. The wheat fields burst into flames as energy beams swept across them like burning swords. The colonists ran in terror, but there was nowhere to hide from the destruction falling from the sky. Mary Wells grabbed Anna and ran toward the emergency shelter beneath the administration building. Other families had the same idea, but the shelter could only hold a few hundred people. There were 50,000 colonists on Haven's End. The rest would have to find their own way to survive. The bombardment continued for 3 hours. When it finally stopped, nothing remained of the thriving colony except smoking ruins and scattered debris. The Kalith had been thorough in their work. Even the grain silos had been destroyed, sending clouds of burning wheat into the air. David Cross found himself trapped in a collapsed irrigation tunnel. The concrete structure had partially protected him from the plasma fire, but he was badly injured. He could hear the screams of other survivors echoing through the ruins above him. Some called for help. Others called for family members who would never answer. A few hundred colonists had managed to reach the emergency evacuation pods hidden around the settlement. These small spacecraft were designed to carry survivors to safety in case of natural disasters. Mary Wells helped load children into one pod while Anna clung to her side. The pod could only hold 20 people, but 30 tried to squeeze inside. Take the children first, Mary told the other adults. We'll find another way. Anna looked at her mother with tears in her eyes. I won't leave without you. You have to, Mary said firmly. Someone needs to tell Earth what happened here. Someone needs to make sure this never happens again. The evacuation pods launched just as K-Leith fighters began hunting for survivors. Most of the small spacecraft managed to escape into space, but several were shot down before they could reach safety. The pods that survived began broadcasting distress signals, hoping that someone would hear them in the vast emptiness between stars. War Chief Thane watched the destruction from his command deck. The human settlement was gone, reduced to ash and twisted metal. This had been easier than conquering most worlds. Humans were indeed as weak as intelligence reports suggested. Send a message to all human colonies in this sector, Thane ordered, his communications officer. Tell them that Haven's End is just the beginning. All human settlements are now targets for cleansing. Your species has no place among the stars. The message was broadcast across human space on all emergency frequencies. It would reach Earth in 6 days, carried by the faster-than-light communication relays that connected human colonies. When it arrived, everything would change. Tom Bradley's defense station drifted dead in space, its hull cracked and atmosphere, venting into the void. But the emergency beacon was still functioning, sending out a weak signal that told anyone listening about the massacre that had taken place. The signal would eventually reach a passing freighter or patrol ship, carrying word of Haven's End's fate to the wider galaxy. David Cross finally managed to dig himself out of the collapsed tunnel 3 days later. The colony was completely silent. Now. No voices called for help. No children played in the ruins. The K-Leith had done their work well. Only the sound of wind blowing through the skeletal remains of buildings broke the terrible quiet. The few evacuation pods that escaped drifted through space for almost a week before a cargo hauler picked up their distress signals. When the survivors were finally rescued, they carried with them the story of Haven's End. They brought proof that humanity was no longer safe on the frontier. They brought the spark that would ignite the greatest war in human history. The K-Leith Empire had made their first mistake. They thought humans were weak. Soon they would learn the truth. The emergency session of the Terran Federation Council began at dawn on Earth. Representatives from every human world had traveled through the night to attend this gathering. The news from Haven's End had reached them just 12 hours ago, and already the atmosphere in the Great Chamber was electric with barely controlled rage. Admiral Rebecca Stone entered the council building through crowds of protesters demanding immediate military action. Signs reading, "Remember Haven's End" and "No more human victims" filled the streets of Geneva. Similar demonstrations were taking place on every human world. The species that had spent 2 centuries spreading peacefully among the stars was discovering what it felt like to be truly angry. Inside the council chamber, Mary Wells stood before the assembled representatives. She had arrived on Earth just hours ago, her evacuation pod picked up by a fast courier ship. Her clothes were still stained with ash from her destroyed home. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 50,000 dead. They gave us no warning, Mary said quietly. No demands, no negotiations. They simply declared that we were unworthy of our world and began killing us. They murdered children playing in wheat fields. They burned down schools and hospitals. They did it because they believed we were weak. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives stood and shouted demands for immediate retaliation. Others called for mobilization of every ship in the fleet. President Williams raised her hand for silence, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. The Federation has always pursued peaceful solutions, President Williams said when order was restored. We have built our civilization on the principle that violence should be the last resort. But what happened at Haven's End cannot stand. The K-Leith Empire has declared war on humanity. We will respond accordingly. Admiral Stone was given unlimited authority to build the largest military force in human history. Every shipyard in Federation space received new orders. The massive orbital construction facilities that had been building colony ships and cargo haulers suddenly switched to producing warships and weapons. Within weeks, the sound of construction echoed throughout human space. Dr. Paul Harrison was pulled from his research position at the Mars Institute of Technology to head the new weapons development program. His team included the best scientific minds from dozens of worlds, all working with a single goal: making human military technology superior to anything the galaxy had ever seen. "We've always been good at adapting," Dr. Harrison told his team during their first meeting. "It's what let us survive on Earth when larger, stronger predators wanted to eat us. Now we need to adapt to fighting aliens who think they're better than us." The first breakthrough came within a month. Human computers had always been more advanced than most alien systems because humans had learned to build artificial intelligence that could think creatively. Dr. Harrison's team designed new ship computers that could analyze alien tactics in real time and develop counter-strategies faster than any biological mind could process. The second breakthrough was even more impressive. Human ships had traditionally used nuclear missiles and energy weapons similar to other species, but Dr. Harrison's team discovered that human understanding of physics was actually more advanced than most aliens realized. They developed quantum torpedoes that could phase through shields and gravitational mines that created artificial black holes. Meanwhile, David Cross had become something unexpected, a hero. His survival story from Haven's End made him famous throughout human space. But David wasn't interested in fame. He wanted revenge. He volunteered for the new Colonial Intelligence Service, using his knowledge of alien technology to help map Kalith territories and identify their weaknesses. "I spent 3 days walking through the ruins of my home," David told his fellow agents. "I saw what their weapons do to human bodies. I saw how they destroyed everything we built. Every piece of information we gather about them brings us one step closer to making them pay." The intelligence network grew rapidly. Survivors from other destroyed colonies joined the service. Merchants who had traded with aliens provided information about Kalith military capabilities. Even some aliens who opposed the Kalith Empire began secretly sharing intelligence with human agents. War Chief Thane received reports about human military buildup with amusement. His intelligence officers showed him images of the new human warships under construction. They were larger than previous human vessels, but still smaller than Kalith dreadnoughts. Their weapons appeared to be standard energy cannons and missile systems. Nothing to worry about. "Humans are like frightened animals," Thane told his officers. "When cornered, they make noise and show their teeth, but they lack the strength to do real damage. Their ships are built for commerce and exploration, not war. We will crush this pathetic resistance just as we crushed their colony." The Kalith began preparing for their next expansion phase. Intelligence reports identified 3 more human worlds that would be easy targets. The populations were mostly farmers and miners with minimal defenses. The attacks would demonstrate to other human colonies that resistance was futile, but Thane had never seen humans truly angry before. Throughout their history, humans had been peaceful traders and explorers. In galactic politics, they avoided conflicts and preferred diplomatic solutions. The Kalith had no experience fighting an enemy that combined human intelligence with human fury. Admiral Stone stood in the command center of the Luna shipyards, watching the final construction phases of her new flagship. The ship was massive, over 3 kilometers long and bristling with the new weapons Dr. Harrison's team had developed. She had named it Retribution, and it would lead the force that would make the Kalith Empire regret their actions at Haven's End. "How many ships will be ready for the first offensive?" Admiral Stone asked her chief of staff. 500 warships, Admiral. Another 300 will be completed within 6 months. Every human world has contributed ships and crews. We've never assembled a fleet this large before." Admiral Stone nodded grimly. The Federation had built this fleet faster than anyone thought possible. Human industrial capacity, when focused on a single goal, was apparently far greater than their enemies realized. But building ships was only the first step. Now they needed to prove that humans could fight as well as they could build. The training programs for the new fleet pushed both ships and crews to their limits. Admiral Stone wanted every captain to know exactly how their vessels would perform in combat. She wanted every weapons officer to be able to hit targets at maximum range while performing evasive maneuvers. Most importantly, she wanted every crew member to understand that they were fighting for the survival of their species. Colonel Frank Miller was put in charge of developing new ground combat tactics. His Marines would need to fight Calith warriors, who were physically stronger and had better personal armor. But Miller had an advantage that the aliens didn't understand: human creativity and adaptability in combat situations. Aliens fight according to established patterns, Miller explained to his officers. They learn one way to use their weapons, and stick with it. Humans change tactics based on the situation. We improvise. We adapt. We find ways to win that the enemy never expected. The new marine armor incorporated the latest human technology: personal shields that could deflect plasma, weapons, powered exoskeletons that made humans as strong as most alien warriors. Most importantly, each suit included AI assistants that could analyze enemy movements and suggest optimal combat responses in real time. 6 months after Haven's End, the Vengeance Armada was ready. 500 of the most advanced warships ever, built by human hands, gathered in Earth orbit. Admiral Stone addressed the fleet commanders from the Bridge of Retribution. "The Calith Empire believes that humans are weak," she said. "They destroyed Haven's End because they thought we wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. Today, we begin showing them exactly how wrong they were. Today, we remind the galaxy why humans were the apex predators of our homeworld." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, beginning the journey toward Calith territory. Their first target was Crimson Station, the forward base where War Chief Thane coordinated Calith expansion efforts. It would be a demonstration for the entire galaxy. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. The age of human vengeance had begun. The hyperspace jump took 18 hours, giving Admiral Stone time to review the intelligence reports one final time. Crimson Station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, heavily fortified and protected by a fleet of Calith warships. It served as War Chief Thane's mobile headquarters and the coordination center for Calith expansion into human territory. Dr. Harrison's team had spent weeks analyzing the station's defenses using data gathered by colonial intelligence. The asteroid's rock shell was reinforced with Calith battle steel, making it nearly impervious to conventional weapons. The docking bays were protected by energy shields that could stop most forms of attack. Inside the station, thousands of Calith warriors waited in prepared defensive positions. They built it to be unbeatable, Dr. Harrison had told Admiral Stone during the planning session. Fortunately, they built it to be unbeatable by conventional tactics. Humans don't use conventional tactics. The Vengeance Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Crimson Station system. 500 human warships appeared in perfect formation, their new hull designs gleaming under the light of the system's red star. The sight was magnificent and terrifying, humanity's answer to the destruction of Haven's End. War Chief Thane was in his command center when the alerts began screaming. His sensor officers stared at their displays in disbelief. No human fleet had ever been this large. No human ships had ever looked this advanced. The vessels approaching Crimson Station were clearly built for war, not exploration. "How many ships?" Thane demanded. 500 confirmed, War Chief. All of them are new designs we haven't seen before. Their energy signatures suggest weapons far more powerful than previous human vessels. Thane studied the tactical display with growing concern. His own fleet included 60 warships, each one a veteran of multiple campaigns. But 60 ships against 500 was not good odds, even with the station's defenses to help them. "Admiral," Stone opened communications across all frequencies. Her message was broadcast not only to the Calith forces, but to monitoring stations throughout this sector of space. She wanted the entire galaxy to witness what happened next. This is Admiral Stone of the Terran Federation Vengeance Armada. War Chief Thane, you are responsible for the massacre at Haven's End. You murdered 50,000 innocent civilians without warning or provocation. You declared that humans are weak and unworthy. Today we prove you wrong. The human fleet moved into attack formation with precision that impressed even their enemies. Each ship knew exactly where it belonged in the battle plan. The new AI systems allowed the fleet to coordinate movements and attacks in real time, creating a level of tactical unity that no alien force had ever achieved. Thane ordered his ships to engage the humans at maximum range, hoping to use the superior firepower of Calith weapons to thin out the enemy fleet before they could close distance. His ships opened fire with their heavy plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy racing toward the approaching human vessels. The human response shocked everyone watching. Instead of trying to dodge the incoming fire, the human ships simply phased out of normal space for split seconds, allowing the plasma beams to pass harmlessly through them. Dr. Harrison's team had developed phase shift technology that let ships briefly exist in a parallel dimension, making them untouchable by conventional weapons. Impossible, Thane whispered as he watched his most powerful weapons prove completely useless against the human fleet. The Vengeance Armada reached optimal firing range and opened fire with their quantum torpedoes. The new weapons phased through the Calith shields as if they didn't exist, then materialized inside the enemy ships and exploded with devastating force. 6 Calith warships vanished in the first salvo, their hulls torn apart by explosions that came from within. Colonel Miller's assault transports moved toward the station itself. The heavily armored ships ignored the defensive fire from the asteroid's surface weapons, their shields deflecting plasma beams that would have destroyed older human vessels. The transports landed in the station's docking bays, cutting through the energy barriers with focused gravitational fields. The Calith warriors waiting inside the docking bays had prepared for a conventional ground assault. They expected human soldiers with standard weapons and armor, fighting according to established military doctrine. What they got instead was something far more dangerous. Humans who had learned to fight with the fury of a species pushed too far. Colonel Miller led the first wave personally, his new power armor making him faster and stronger than the Calith warriors he faced. The suit's AI analyzed enemy movement patterns and suggested optimal attack angles in real time. But the real advantage was human creativity and adaptability in combat. The Calith fought according to their training, using established formations and proven tactics. The humans improvised constantly, changing their approach based on what worked against each specific enemy. When Calith plasma rifles proved ineffective against human shields, the humans switched to close-quarters combat where their enhanced strength gave them the advantage. They don't fight like any species we've encountered before, a Calith officer reported to Thane as his warriors were systematically defeated. They adapt their tactics constantly. Every time we counter one approach, they try something different. The space battle continued to go badly for the Calith. Their remaining ships tried ramming attacks against the human vessels, but the phase shift technology made even that desperate tactic useless. The human ships would phase out of normal space just before impact, then rematerialize behind the Calith vessels and destroy them with close-range weapons fire. War Chief Thane found himself trapped in his command center as Colonel Miller's Marines fought their way through the station's corridors. His elite guards, warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, were being defeated by humans in powered armor who fought with a combination of advanced technology and primal fury. The final assault on the command center lasted only minutes. The Calith barricades crumbled under human weapons that could phase through solid matter and explode on the other side. Thane's guards died fighting, but their sacrifice only delayed the inevitable. Colonel Miller entered the command center with his weapon trained on War Chief Thane. The Caliph commander was wounded but still alive, his armor cracked and his breathing labored. He looked up at the human colonel with something like respect in his alien eyes. "You fight better than our intelligence suggested," Thane admitted. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we believed." "We tried to be peaceful," Miller replied. "You mistook our kindness for weakness. That was your first mistake. It will also be your last." Admiral Stone's voice echoed through the station's communication system as Crimson Station fell under human control. "This is Admiral Stone speaking to all Caliph forces in this sector. Your forward base is destroyed. Your fleet is defeated. Your commander is captured. This is what happens when you attack innocent human civilians." The message was broadcast across Caliph space and beyond. Every alien civilization monitoring the battle heard Admiral Stone's next words clearly. The Terran Federation tried to coexist peacefully with all species. "We asked for nothing except the right to build our homes on worlds we could make flourish. You responded with genocide. Now you face the consequences. Surrender the coordinates of Haven's End for proper burial of our dead, or face total war. This is our only offer." War Chief Thane was taken prisoner along with the surviving members of his crew. The Caliph warriors who had surrendered during the ground fighting were also captured. They would be questioned about Caliph military capabilities and the locations of other enemy installations. The Vengeance Armada prepared to move deeper into Caliph territory. Crimson Station had been just the beginning, a demonstration of human capabilities and resolve. The real war was about to begin. As the human fleet jumped back into hyperspace, heading for their next target, the galaxy began to understand that something fundamental had changed. Humans were no longer the peaceful explorers and traders they had been for 2 centuries. They had become something far more dangerous, a species at war, fighting for the survival of everything they held dear. The age of human conquest had begun, and the Caliph Empire was about to learn why humans had been the apex predators of their homeworld. 3 months after the fall of Crimson Station, the galactic balance of power was shifting in ways that terrified alien civilizations across known space. The humans weren't just winning battles, they were revolutionizing warfare itself. Every engagement revealed new tactical innovations that left enemy forces confused and defeated. Commander Lisa Harper stood on the bridge of Ghost Runner, watching her sensors track a Caliph patrol fleet. Her ship was completely unmanned except for herself, controlled by an advanced AI that could react faster than any biological crew. This was the newest evolution in human military technology, ghost ships that could sacrifice themselves for strategic advantage without risking human lives. "Ghost Fleet Alpha, this is Harper," she transmitted to the 19 other AI-controlled vessels following her. "Target confirmed. Caliph heavy cruiser with escort fighters. Execute pattern 7. The ghost ships moved like a school of predatory fish, each one controlled by quantum-linked artificial intelligence that shared information instantaneously. The Caliph patrol never had a chance to react before quantum torpedoes phased through their shields and tore their ships apart from the inside. Lisa watched the enemy vessels die with grim satisfaction. Her brother had been visiting Haven's End when the Caliph attacked. His body was somewhere in the ashes of that world, along with 50,000 other innocents who had never hurt anyone. Every dead Caliph ship was a small payment against that debt. General Robert Kim was pioneering new orbital bombardment techniques from his command ship above the Caliph fortress world of Stone Ridge. Traditional bombardment took days or weeks to crack heavily defended planets. Kim's new approach could do it in hours. "Deploy the gravitational mines," Kim ordered his fleet. "Pattern delta formation around the planet's defensive satellites." The mines created artificial black holes that lasted just long enough to disrupt the enemy's orbital defenses. As the Caliph defensive platforms were pulled into the gravitational distortions and destroyed, Kim's ships moved in to begin systematic bombardment of military targets on the surface. The Kalith built their fortresses to withstand conventional siege warfare, Kim explained to his officers as they watched enemy installations crumble under human firepower. They never imagined anyone would find a way to manipulate gravity, itself as a weapon. The alien coalition that had once supported the Kalith Empire was beginning to fracture. The Repthar Confederacy withdrew their fleet after watching human forces destroy a Kalith battle group in less than 10 minutes. The insectoid swarms stopped providing intelligence support when they realized the humans had learned to hack their communication networks in real time. Ambassador. Nexus of the Galactic Trade Council requested an emergency meeting with Admiral Stone. The ancient diplomat had negotiated treaties between species for over 2 centuries, but he had never seen anything like the human war machine. Admiral Stone, your species has achieved military superiority faster than should be possible, Ambassador Nexus said during their video conference. Your technology appears to be advancing during the war itself. How are you developing new weapons and tactics so quickly? We're adapting, Admiral Stone replied simply. That's what humans do. We study our enemies and find ways to defeat them. Every battle teaches us something new about how to win the next one. What the ambassador didn't understand was that human creativity and adaptability weren't just advantages in war. They were transforming the nature of warfare itself. Other species learned military tactics over decades or centuries. Humans learned them between battles, constantly improving and innovating based on each new experience. Dr. Harrison's research teams were working around the clock to develop new weapons and defensive systems. Every captured Kalith technology was studied and improved upon. Every failed enemy tactic was analyzed to find weaknesses that could be exploited. The aliens think in terms of established doctrine, Dr. Harrison explained to President Williams during a secure communication. They develop a weapon system and use it the same way for generations. Humans develop a weapon system and then immediately start thinking of better ways to use it. That's why we're winning. War Chief Thane remained in human custody, but his interrogation had revealed disturbing information about Kalith military capabilities. The Empire had conquered over 40 worlds in the past 3 centuries. They had destroyed dozens of species that resisted their expansion. Humanity was not their first attempt at genocide. They've done this before, David Cross reported to Colonial Intelligence. Multiple times. Species that fight back get completely exterminated. Species that surrender become slave labor. They expected us to follow one of those 2 patterns. But humans were following a third pattern that the Kalith had never encountered before. They weren't just resisting, they were winning decisively. Every battle demonstrated human technological and tactical superiority. More importantly, every victory made other alien species less willing to support the Kalith cause. The Battle of Iron Gate marked the turning point where even the Kalith began to understand they were losing the war. The fortress system was supposed to be impregnable, protected by overlapping defensive fields and hundreds of automated weapons platforms. General Kim's fleet cracked it in 6 hours using gravitational weapons and phase shift tactics. Report from Iron Gate, Admiral Stone's communications officer announced. General Kim's forces have secured the system. Enemy resistance collapsed. After we demonstrated the new singularity torpedoes, the Kalith defenders surrendered rather than face complete annihilation. Surrender was becoming more common as word spread through Kalith space about human military capabilities. Warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were laying down their weapons rather than face the terrifying efficiency of human warfare. The species that had once considered humans weak and primitive now feared them above all others. The psychological impact of continuous defeat was breaking Kalith morale throughout the Empire. Soldiers who had never known defeat were experiencing it repeatedly against an enemy they had been taught to despise. Officers who had built their careers on successful conquest were watching their fleets get systematically destroyed by human forces that seemed to anticipate their every move. War Chief Thane's replacement, Commander Vorth, tried to rally the remaining Kalith forces for a desperate counterattack against human territory. The plan was to bypass the main human fleet and strike directly at Earth, forcing humanity to negotiate from a position of weakness. The attack never reached its target. Human intelligence networks had penetrated so deeply into Calith communications that Admiral Stone knew about the planned assault before it launched. The Vengeance Armada was waiting in hyperspace when the Calith fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. "This is Admiral Stone to all Calith forces," she broadcast as her ships emerged from hyperspace around the enemy fleet. "You came here to attack our homeworld. You made the same mistake your species has been making since Haven's End. You underestimated humanity. Surrender now, or be destroyed." Commander Vorth chose to fight rather than surrender. It was the last decision he ever made. The Calith fleet was completely destroyed in less than 30 minutes, their ships unable to match human technology or tactics. Not a single human vessel was seriously damaged in the engagement. News of the failed attack on Earth spread throughout the galaxy within hours. The Calith Empire, which had dominated this sector of space for 3 centuries, was revealed to be powerless against human military forces. Species that had feared Calith expansion for generations began to see humans as potential liberators rather than threats. The Vengeance Armada had grown to over 800 ships as human industrial capacity reached full wartime production. Every human world was contributing vessels and crews to the war effort. Civilian shipyards had been converted to military production. The entire species was focused on a single goal, making the Calith Empire pay for what they had done at Haven's End. Admiral Stone received reports from across the battlefront as human forces pushed deeper into enemy territory. Every Calith world was either under attack or preparing for siege. The empire that had once seemed invincible was crumbling under the relentless advance of human military might. "Status report from all fronts," Admiral Stone requested from her command staff. "All major Calith fleets have been defeated or withdrawn. To their homeworld, Admiral. Their colonial governments are requesting surrender terms. Intelligence estimates that organized resistance will collapse within the next few weeks." Admiral Stone nodded grimly. The war was almost over, but the final battle would be the most important one. The Calith homeworld was where this conflict would end, one way or another. It was time to finish what the aliens had started at Haven's End. The age of Calith dominance was ending. The age of human ascendancy was about to begin. The red giant star that warmed Keth Prime cast an ominous glow across the assembled human fleet. 800 warships hung in space like a constellation of vengeance, their hulls reflecting the crimson light as they prepared for the final battle of the war. This was the Calith homeworld, center of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries. Admiral Stone stood in the command center of Retribution, studying the tactical displays that showed enemy positions around the planet. The Calith had pulled back every surviving ship to defend their homeworld. Nearly 200 vessels, including their most powerful dreadnoughts, waited in orbital formations around Keth Prime. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. Dr. Harrison's final gift to the war effort was monitoring stations throughout the fleet. Every human ship was equipped with sensors that could analyze enemy technology in real time and develop countermeasures automatically. The AI systems that controlled human weapons had learned from every previous battle, becoming more deadly with each engagement. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Stone," she broadcast to her ships. "The Calith Empire began this war by murdering 50,000 innocent civilians at Haven's End. They declared that humans were weak and unworthy of the worlds we had made flourish. Today, we show them the price of that mistake." War Chief Drac, who had assumed command after Vorth's death, watched the human fleet approach with something approaching despair. Every battle report for the past 6 months had told the same story: overwhelming human victory against impossible odds. The species his people had dismissed as primitive farmers had become the most terrifying military force the galaxy had ever seen. "They're maintaining perfect formation," his tactical officer reported. "No ship is out of position. Their coordination is flawless." Drac had studied every human battle, trying to understand how they had achieved such rapid military advancement. The conclusion was disturbing. Humans didn't just learn from their mistakes, they learned from everything. Every engagement made them better fighters. Every captured weapon became the basis for a superior human design. Admiral Stone opened communications on all frequencies, ensuring that her message would be heard not just by the Kalith, but by monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. The final ultimatum would be witnessed by every species capable of receiving radio transmissions. "War Chief Drac, this is your last opportunity to prevent the complete destruction of your home world. Surrender unconditionally and provide full reparations for the genocide at Haven's End, or face the same fate you inflicted on innocent humans. You have 1 hour to decide." The response came not in words, but in weapons fire. Kalith orbital defense platforms opened fire with their most powerful plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy racing toward the human fleet. The aliens were choosing to fight to the end rather than accept defeat. The human fleet's response demonstrated just how far their technology had advanced during the war. Instead of dodging the incoming fire, the ships activated their new deflector systems. The plasma beams struck invisible barriers and split apart harmlessly. Their energy dissipated into space like water hitting a stone wall. "Phase 1, execute," Admiral Stone commanded. The first wave of human ships launched their quantum torpedoes at maximum range. Hundreds of the phase-shifting weapons materialized inside Kalith vessels and exploded simultaneously. The enemy's defensive formation crumbled as ship after ship vanished in brilliant fireballs that lit up the space around Keth Prime. War Chief Drac ordered his remaining ships to close distance and engage the humans directly. If Kalith weapons were ineffective, at long range, perhaps close combat would give them an advantage. His dreadnoughts moved forward with their escort fighters, preparing for a desperate charge against the human battle line. Commander Harper's ghost ships met the Kalith charge head-on. The AI-controlled vessels moved with inhuman precision, each one coordinating perfectly with the others to create a web of destructive fire. The Kalith fighters found themselves facing opponents that could predict their movements and react faster than any biological pilot. Ghost Fleet Alpha, initiate. "Sacrifice protocol," Harper commanded, as her sensors detected the Kalith dreadnoughts approaching. 20 unmanned human ships accelerated directly toward the enemy capital ships, their quantum cores overloading to create massive explosions. The Kalith dreadnoughts tried to destroy the approaching ghost ships with point defense weapons, but the human vessels phased in and out of normal space too quickly to target effectively. When they reached the enemy formation, the explosions were visible from the planet's surface, brilliant stars of destruction that marked the end of the Kalith fleet's offensive capability. General Kim's bombardment ships moved into position around Keth Prime as the space battle continued. The planet's surface was protected by massive shield generators and automated defense systems, but Kim's forces had spent months developing specific countermeasures for this moment. "Deploy the resonance torpedoes," Kim ordered. "Target the planetary shield generators." The new weapons used harmonic frequencies to disrupt the energy patterns that maintained the planetary shields. As the defensive barriers flickered and failed, Kim's ships began their bombardment of military targets on the surface. The weapons were precisely calibrated to destroy Kalith installations without causing unnecessary damage to civilian areas. War Chief Drac found himself commanding a losing battle from his flagship as human forces systematically destroyed his fleet. The dreadnought Vengeance of Worlds had been the pride of the Kalith Navy, armed with weapons that could crack planets. But its massive plasma cannons were useless against human shields, and its armor couldn't stop quantum torpedoes that materialized inside the ship. "All decks report heavy damage," his engineering officer announced as another wave of human weapons found their target. "Hull breaches on 17 levels, main power at 30% and falling." Drac realized that this was how the war would end, not with Caliph victory or even honorable defeat, but with complete humiliation at the hands of the species they had thought weak. The humans weren't just winning, they were demonstrating technological and tactical superiority that made Caliph military doctrine obsolete. Colonel Miller led the final ground assault against the planetary government complex. His Marines had become legendary throughout human space for their effectiveness against alien forces. The powered armor they wore made them stronger than most alien warriors, but their real advantage was their ability to adapt tactics in real time. The Caliph Planetary Guard tried to establish defensive positions in the government district, but human forces simply phased through their barricades and attacked from unexpected angles. The aliens fought bravely, but courage was no substitute for superior technology and training. Government complex secured, Miller reported to Admiral Stone, as his Marines took control of the Caliph Leadership Center. Planetary Council members are requesting terms for surrender. Admiral Stone watched from Retribution's bridge as the last Caliph warships were destroyed around Keth Prime. The space battle had lasted 3 days, but the outcome had never been in doubt. Human technology and tactics had proven superior at every level of engagement. War Chief Drax's flagship finally succumbed to accumulated damage, its hull splitting apart as internal explosions tore through the ship. The Caliph commander managed to reach an escape pod, but he knew that survival would only mean facing the consequences of his species' actions. The final surrender came from the Caliph Planetary Council, transmitted on all frequencies as their homeworld burned around them. The message was brief and unconditional. The Caliph Empire officially surrendered to human forces and accepted full responsibility for the genocide at Haven's End. Admiral Stone's response would be remembered throughout galactic history. Standing on the bridge of her flagship with the burning Caliph homeworld visible through the viewports, she delivered the message that announced humanity's emergence as the dominant military power in known space. "The war is over," she broadcast to the galaxy. "The Caliph Empire has surrendered unconditionally. They will provide full reparations for the destruction of Haven's End, including the construction of a memorial to honor our dead. They will disarm their military and submit to human oversight of their government." But Admiral Stone's most important words came at the end of her message, directed not just at the defeated Caliph, but at every species listening throughout the galaxy. "Let this be a lesson to any who would threaten humanity. We came to the stars seeking peace and cooperation. We asked for nothing except the right to build our homes on worlds we could make flourish. The Caliph Empire responded with genocide, believing we were too weak to resist." The Admiral paused, letting her words carry across space to every civilization, capable of receiving them. They were wrong. Humans are not weak. We are not primitive. We are not defenseless. We are the species that survived as apex predators on our homeworld, and we have brought that heritage to the stars. Attack our people, and you will face the full might of human vengeance. Threaten our colonies, and we will show you why we were the most dangerous species on Earth. The message concluded with a promise that would shape galactic politics for generations to come. The Terran Federation seeks peace with all species willing to coexist respectfully. But if you mistake our desire for peace as weakness, if you harm our people because you think we won't fight back, you will learn what the Caliph Empire learned. You will discover that humans are not prey. We are predators, and this galaxy now belongs to us. The Vengeance Armada began its journey home to human space, carrying with them the knowledge that the age of human expansion had truly begun. No alien species would dare attack human colonies again. The massacre at Haven's End had been the Caliph Empire's first mistake. It had also been their last. The galaxy would remember.